Hey guys, today we're going to travel back to the 40s with another case. This one's a little disturbing. This one actually you might be aware of. There's been a couple movies over the years on this, and we're talking other than the Moonlight Massacre of...
The Phantom Killer.
All right, come on back. We got to get into it.
With this new system, we can travel to and from the human world.
I'm ready.
Whoa!
Wow. So this is what I look like in the human world. This is pretty nice. We will have to visit more often. What do you think, Agent Wells?
I have to agree with you, Agent Owens. This human world is pretty nice, and I would definitely come back here.
I'm glad to be back.
I'm glad you guys are back too, because that was kind of creepy. I think you guys should stay in the animated world. That's our AI and crime investigation team. We're Studio 7-0 though, and
it's your girl Shua.
And Ahmed, yes. And our Crime Force team, they're AI created, and they also use AI tools to help us bring the information in an informative way on these cases. And we got a good one, but before we even get into that,
Yes, this is for education and entertainment purposes only. Please do your own research, even though we use an AI. Sometimes they do make mistakes too.
oh yeah.
And always be kind to everyone, friends, family, strangers.
Because just want you know, the AI tools and information, it just gathers content out there. Sometimes it's accurate, sometimes it's not. So yeah, definitely do your research. Enjoy it. It's entertainment here as we go through the cases, and we really enjoy you guys watching with us. So today we're going to talk about the Moonlight Massacre, the Phantom Killer. And again, this one may seem more familiar. It's not that obscure. Last week's case in the 30s was a little bit more obscure. This one probably isn't as much, but if you're in the younger generation, this will be new to you. So let's get into it. We're going to have Crime Force give us the background.
The story of the Phantom Killer of Texarkana is one of the most infamous unsolved serial murder cases in American history. The crimes, which occurred in 1946 in Texarkana, a city that straddles the Texas-Arkansas border, instilled terror in the local community and inspired folklore, movies, and ongoing speculation. Now let's set the stage of this case. In the aftermath of World War II, Texarkana, a small but bustling twin city straddling the Texas-Arkansas border, was experiencing post-war economic growth and cultural shifts. The town had a modest population, and while crime existed, brutal, random violence was rare, making the Phantom Killer's attacks all the more shocking. In 1946, teenagers and young couples often gathered at isolated lovers' lanes, a common social activity of the era. However, the string of brutal murders targeting these secluded spots turned a once carefree town into a community gripped by fear. The Texarkana Moonlight murders not only shattered the town's sense of security but also left a lasting psychological impact, with residents arming themselves and imposing self-imposed curfews. Law enforcement in Texarkana at the time was split between Texas and Arkansas authorities, which complicated the investigation. The Texas Rangers, local police, Miller County Sheriff's Office, and the FBI all became involved, yet their combined efforts failed to bring the killer to justice. The lack of forensic technology in 1946 meant investigators had to rely on witness statements, circumstantial evidence, and ballistics, tools that, while useful, were not advanced enough to solve the case definitively. Adding to the difficulty, the Phantom Killer appeared to strike at random, with no clear personal connections to his victims. As panic spread, newspapers sensationalized the crimes, cementing the legend of the mysterious, masked assailant who vanished without a trace.
Yep, good old-fashioned back then. It was just police work. You go down, find out who's saying what.
Right, which is definitely not accurate. I really like, more evidence. So I really definitely disagree with that.
We're spoiled with the forensic files.
Exactly. Forensic is where it's at.
Let's talk about the attacks. So now that set the stage, which is great, but let's get into the attack parts.
the Phantom Killer's reign of terror. Between February and May 1946, a mysterious assailant, who came to be known as the Phantom Killer, committed a series of brutal attacks, mostly targeting young couples in isolated areas. The attacks became known as the Texarkana Moonlight murders. The case is particularly chilling because the killer was never identified or caught. First attack, February 22, 1946, survivors. On the night of Friday, February 22, around 11:45 p.m., a young couple, Jimmy Hollis and Mary Jean Larry, were parked in a secluded lover's lane after watching a movie. A masked man, wearing a white sack with holes cut for eyes, approached their car. The attacker forced Hollis out of the car, ordering him to remove his pants. He then brutally beat Hollis, fracturing his skull with the butt of a pistol. He essayed Larry with the barrel of the gun before letting her flee. Larry ran to a nearby house and got help. Both survived, but Hollis was in critical condition. The description of the attacker was vague, over 6 feet tall, wearing a white mask, and speaking in a deep, growling voice. Second attack, March 24, 1946, first murders. Just under a month later, another couple was found murdered. On March 24, at 1:30 a.m., police discovered the bodies of Richard Griffin and Polly and Moore on a secluded road. Griffin was found slumped in the front seat of the car with gunshot wounds to the head.
That's sad.
Moore was outside the car, lying face down. Both had been shot execution style with a .32 caliber pistol. There was no SA, but the crime scene suggested Moore's body had been moved after death. Third attack, April 14, 1946, most brutal murders. The most gruesome murders occurred on April 14, 1946, when Paul Martin and Betty Jo Booker were attacked. Booker, a talented saxophonist, had performed with her band that night. Her body was found 2 miles away from Martin's. Martin was shot 4 times. Booker was shot twice, and evidence suggested she had been SA'd. The killer took her saxophone, which was never recovered. Fourth attack, May 3, 1946, final and most terrifying. The last known attack was different from the previous ones. It targeted a married couple in their home. Virgil Starks was shot twice in the back of the head while sitting in his living room. His wife, Katie Starks, was shot twice in the face when she tried to call for help.
Wow.
Miraculously, she survived,
What?
escaping to a neighbor's house for help. The killer vanished into the night.
Got shot in the face twice?
I was thinking about that, and
Wow.
the saxophone, like, he didn't sell that. They didn't go to any pawn shops and try to see if someone...
I guess, I know some of them have serial numbers, but maybe they held on to it as a souvenir and it just so many years passed. It just kind of, I don't know. That's wild. So since it was never solved, let's hear about the suspects and theories. I'm curious as to who they thought it could be.
The attacks paralyzed the town with fear. Residents armed themselves, locked their doors, and refused to go out after dark.
Yes.
Newspapers referred to the killer as the Phantom due to his elusiveness. Law enforcement, including the Texas Rangers, local police, and the FBI, launched one of the largest manhunts in Texas history, yet the killer was never caught. Prime suspects. Yowell Swinney, main suspect. A career criminal and car thief. His wife, Peggy Swinney, allegedly confessed that he was the Phantom. However, her testimony was legally inadmissible due to spousal privilege. Swinney was arrested for car theft but never charged with the murders.
Never know about that.
Other theories. Some speculated that the killer was a local resident who disappeared after the murders. Others believed he was a soldier or transient worker. Some even linked him to the Zodiac Killer, 1960s-70s, due to similar cryptic and brutal methods. The case inspired the 1976 cult horror film, The Town That Dreaded Sundown, and its 2014 sequel. urban legends of the Phantom Killer continue to haunt Texarkana. Every year, the town hosts an outdoor screening of the film on Halloween.
That's weird. Okay.
To this day, the Phantom Killer's identity remains a mystery, making it one of the most terrifying and enduring true crime cases in American history.
Thank you, Crime Force. We gotta talk about this one a little bit. Well, that's weird that they play the movie every year. But maybe they feel safe now that whoever did this is long gone, obviously.
Yeah.
But that first one where the woman said that, oh, it's my husband, but spousal privilege. What is that? I have to look that up. That's a new one. I don't even know what that is, but that sounds weird to me. So he probably got away with it. And then they're thinking, okay, maybe it was related to the other serial killer. I don't know. This stuff just gives me a headache. All I know is that, can you imagine living at those times? And, well, I guess it worked out good for those parents that didn't want their kids going to Lover's Lane. I guess, it cracks me up. But for those,
be careful.
Yeah, and really quickly, before I turn over to Shrock here for her comments, just to let you guys know, Lover's Lane, and I know it sounds wacky, but for younger people who may not know what it is,
Exactly.
back then, in the culture just after World War II, a lot of men came back after hard years of seeing things and being in the war and, having children, and things got strict, even, I know that's more in the 50s, but even in the 40s, there's a lot of strict. You couldn't bring your, boyfriend, girlfriend over and hang out in the house and be private in a room. That was not going to happen. So the only way people would get privacy is if they would drive off after a drive-in movie, go to these obscure parking locations and go and talk and kiss and whatever. That was parking. It was like going to a secluded area. That has, I think, stopped. I know in the 80s there was still some of that, but not really. It's kind of died off. But anyhow, just want to kind of inform you guys what that is in case you're younger and have no clue what that was. Yeah. But go ahead, Shrock.
Yeah,
it's
that
all
was
you
romantic. Now. Everybody would drive off. The only thing you hear was the car bounce.
I know what you're talking. Come on now.
No, but serious. Yes, so this is definitely an old one, but I think it's definitely a good one to us to, like I always repeat, know a little bit about what happened in the past of the killers and the unsolved cases. So that was definitely interesting. And like you said, the spousal, that was interesting as well, because I guess whatever she said, they couldn't say anything about it. Oh, man, maybe he was the person. I think so. What do you think, guys? Do you think that could have been the person as well?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's probably the closest thing to it, most likely.
Right. But it would have been great if she had some evidence, if she saw that, I guess he wore over his head and be like, look, this is the evidence. Maybe they would have, he probably would have said, okay, maybe, because they have evidence. And that's one thing that I always say, you got to have some substantial evidence. So when you want to convict someone, you're convicting the right person, right? But it was just interesting. And why would he just randomly kill people? That's my question too. There's no correlation of why he was just killing. And then a lot of them are young. A lot of them are just couples going out and having fun. I don't know. It could have been a jealousy thing, or maybe because he grew up in isolation. And I don't know.
Maybe. It's really odd because there really seems like there's a rhyme or reason, but we've seen crimes where people think aliens or the people are talking in their head, or they watch TV and they think the person on TV is telling them to go and do something like this. I don't know. It's just really bizarre. But there is a couple movies on this, as was mentioned during the Crime Force discussion here. So that way, this one's a little bit more known than some of the other ones. But we hope you liked it. And, We'll mix it up here and there. We have a little bit, some creepy ones, some older ones, some newer ones.
Yeah.
We'll all over the place. We just want you to come and sit with us, almost like eat popcorn with us, and watch what Crime Force has for us in these cases, and bring the information to us and discuss it and watch it together and see what you all think.
Right, and this is a lot of history that's actually we want to do. What is our value? Providing you with knowledge of these
all
cases.
these things to be aware. And please come back and watch again, like and subscribe. That would mean a lot to us, because that way, as we do this year to year, we enjoy doing it, but we want to make sure we're providing some value. So, and for us to know if you want us to continue, that's the best way to know, is if our numbers go up. Any last words?
Yes, just want to say thank you for watching, and until next time, Studio 70.
Studio 70.